Good morning. We're just going to give a few seconds to clear the waiting room. Okay, I believe we are all set. Good morning. This is an informational hearing before the licensing board for the city of Boston. Today is Tuesday, April 12th, 2022. Today's hearing is being held pursuant to temporary amendments to the open meeting law. That is what allows us to meet virtually. Today's hearing will be recorded and posted to the City of Boston website. Before I review the procedure for this morning's informational hearing, I will introduce Chairwoman Kathleen Joyce.
Good morning. My name is Kathleen Joyce. I'm chair of the Boston Licensing Board, and today I'm pleased to be joined by Commissioner Liam Curran and Commissioner Kiana Saxon.
Thank you. All those who will be speaking before the board this morning, please ensure your audio and visuals are working properly. This is an informational hearing. This is not a violation or disciplinary hearing. This is an opportunity for the licensing board to have a conversation with the licensee and ask questions relative to its operations. There's only one item on this morning's agenda: Russian Benevolent Society doing business as Crystal Restaurant Garage Room located at 14 to 20 Linden Street in Allston. Informational hearing regarding the licensee's reopening plan pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64. As background, the licensee was before this board on January 18th, 2022 for a violation hearing regarding the following violation, which took place on November 15th, 2021. Assault and battery with a dangerous weapon in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, Chapter 265, Section 15A. Assault and battery, patron on patron, in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Assault and battery, patron on employee, in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Failure to call 911 in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Board's Rule 1.14b, and failure to cooperate with police in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Board's Rule 1.10a and b. The licensed premise has been closed since the hearing. Following the hearing, the board voted to issue a 4-day suspension to be served upon reopening on days to be approved by the board. And further, prior to reopening, the licensee must submit for approval by the board a reopening plan, which shall include a security plan, including a plan for maintaining a working security system, a training plan for all staff, security personnel, contractors, and promoters, including training on cooperating with law enforcement, a list of all staff, security personnel, and contractors regularly employed by the licensee, and an appropriate 24-hour contact in case of an emergency. Further, the board has requested advance notice anytime a promoter will be engaged by the licensee. The reopening plan, as requested by the board, is the subject of this morning's informational hearing. I would like to give the licensee an opportunity to walk the board through their submitted plan by way of opening remarks, at which point I will then turn it over to the commissioners and representatives of the Boston Police Department for any questions they might have about the proposed plan. Who is present on behalf of the licensee this morning?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Attorney Kurt Bletzer for the licensee. With me today, I also have Alex Matov, who is the manager of record, and I have Abraham Hale, who is a newly hired manager, and Alexander Shapiro. We had submitted a plan, a reopening plan to you, and if I can run through that for you, and then I'd like to introduce the other folks and let them answer questions and go through it with you in more detail, if that works for you. The first thing we did, Alex Matov hired Abraham Hale approximately a month ago, and with the sole purpose of having him come in, hiring him as a manager to come in and to help with the reopening plan. Abraham is an individual that's been in the business for past 10 to 15 years. His family owns a restaurant bar over in Somerville that he's worked at for the past 10 years. He also has an extensive background in promoting and dealing with promoters within the Boston and the ensuing surrounding areas. Abraham is 36 years old, has a young son, and has been a great help and has been a good resource for us in terms of putting a plan in place. The plan involves opening, starting with Thursdays to Sunday nights, and we'll use private events, and Monday to Wednesday would be, different events that come through that are private events that we deal with. The staff hiring has been done. A lot of the internal staff that's here are people that have been here in the past. They have been We've talked to them at length. We have meetings set up in the next couple of days to put everybody together to go over our opening plan and to talk about some of the issues and some of obviously what we expect and what the board expects for us to be able to run a safe and enjoyable establishment for the employees and for our patrons. The process for rehiring had to do with interviewing the hires, most of whom we knew. We did background checks on everybody. We did not query the bartenders. At this time, we didn't do that. There has been some conversation about doing that. We have done it for our managers, so we know that there are no records and they're clear. We do training, do the tips training for all of our employees that come in the service and the bartenders, and then we do a training issue and talk about greeting customers, how we deal with the customers, and the big issue obviously is de-escalation and understanding and trying to see and know when there's an issue or a potential issue that's going to come, and to talk to management, have management get security, bring security over, let them deal with the patrons, let them deal with them obviously in a friendly and as best manner as we can to make sure that we can de-escalate anything that may be a potential problem that we're having. They have been extensively talked to and will continue to be talked to about cooperating with police and making sure that in the event that there is any issue or potential issue that we see, that we're calling the police now. I know that was an issue that the board had for the last incident that we just had. That was there a possibility, had we called the police earlier, that we could have prevented the stabbing that happened outside between the patrons. So that is something that we've gone over and will continue to go over and anticipate making sure that the police are involved immediately to help us if we have to need help in de-escalating a situation that we aren't able to take care of ourselves or we think will be a problem for any customers and customers outside. Security is obviously a big issue and a big problem that we wanted to address, and Alex and Abraham went outside to check with a security company, and they did a lot of research and had some past workings with a company called Ameriguard Protective Services. It's over in Everett, Mass. They do a lot of business in the Boston area and the Everett area and the areas surrounding Boston. Abraham can talk to you more about this, but he's had 5 or 6 meetings with them. They've been to the establishment. We've talked about properly securing all of the doors and all of the areas that we have and putting enough personnel, security personnel that have good experience, that are able to identify and keep an eye on and make sure that we can run a safe establishment and make sure we can keep the customers doing what they're supposed to be doing, having a good time as opposed to having any conflicts or fights. Ameriguard does query checks on all of their employees. We've checked that to make sure that that was not going to be an issue. So they're well aware of any background issues that may or may not have. They do a good job in terms of hiring people with no records. They pride themselves in that. One of the principals of the company is a former police officer and has extensive experience with that. Abraham could talk more about that, about staffing. We're anticipating having 7 security staff at the doors. We have 2 different doors that we use, and inside in different areas of the venue. The security cameras, we have an extensive security system. We've had some issues with it. We have replaced that and put some new stuff in here. Joe Sweeney is our security man. We gave you a contact of Joe Sweeney, and Alex Matov is our contact. You have his number already in there as the emergency contact, but we added Joe Sweeney because Joe Sweeney is the Boston police have worked with him in the past. He is really the guy that knows the security system inside and out and has the ability to pull up all the different cameras that we have. We had last year, the year before, we had a lot of talks with Boston police because we added cameras outside on Linden Street that has been very helpful to the police for other incidents that have happened. So we're making sure we've got that all lined up. We've got that back in place so that everything's working. We won't have any glitches in the system, and it'll be beneficial for everybody to have it. We've gone through the security protocols with our staff and with the security company. Talking about greeting people and welcoming them to the establishment, making this obviously what it's supposed to be, an enjoyable time for people to be coming out and going to. IDs, we've gone through the ID process. We're in the process of lining up a CR 5400 black box ID scanner to help with the IDs. We're going to do the best we can with body searching and patting down people in bags and making sure that weapons aren't brought into the establishment. We haven't had a problem with weapons in the establishment. Our problem that historically has been that people, when they get outside, that's when people have been coming and getting. This last incident, somebody got a gun, we assume, out of their car. We're not sure where it came from, but obviously we'll do the best we can for the people that we know are in the establishment and outside. We're going to monitor outside in the parking lot, which is a big part of this. But if we have any issues or we think there are issues, even if they didn't turn into an issue out inside, and we see people leaving that we have any question about, we're going to pay attention to that. We're going to keep an eye on that for people that leave our establishment and then are returning shortly thereafter to make sure there is no issue and we can avoid having a conflict that may have arisen or may have been from somebody seeing somebody that they had a problem with. So we're going to do a better job and try to keep an eye on that. And obviously that will involve calling the police and having the police on board immediately. So we'd like to give also, we'll send in Abraham Hale's number because we expect him to be at the establishment, one of our main managers, and we'll give his number, and Alex Shapiro's number also. We'll be there all the time. And I'd like to, at this point, open it up to questions so that you can hear from, or you can ask questions of Abraham or Alex regarding the issues that I just brought forward for you.
Thank you, Attorney Blitzer. We'll turn it to the board for any questions they may have, beginning with Chairwoman Joyce.
Thank you. And bear with me while I try to wrap my head around the list of employees who submitted and who's joined us today. You don't have Alex Matov listed on the list of employees. However, he is the manager of record. Is that correct?
Yes, and he's the main contact number. I know we already gave that to the board, but we'll give that again.
Okay, so he should be listed on this operations plan.
Correct.
And he's not, but can you describe, Alex, for me, what you understand your role in your organization and your responsibilities to your patrons and to your fellow customers? I mean, to the members of the public?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Kurt, for introducing the hello to everybody. We have the club, the establishment has been functioning for past close to 12 years, a little more than that. And over the years, we thought that we've done our job well. And obviously, sometimes we have situations like this arise, and we need to create a plan of correction and make sure that we are fully board with all the issues that we have had happen, and we addressing them in the right way. Obviously, the safety of our patrons are the most and utmost important thing. What we have noticed throughout the past incident, that we had poor communication with the District 14 Police Department, and this is going to be improved. The security situation is going to have to be improved as well. This is why we have changed the security company that we have worked with, and continue doing a good service for people and creating good environment for our patrons.
Okay, so I'd like one of the things that I think we need to see on the security and operations plan is Alex's name and his role within the list of employees. And Alex, you understand that at the end of the day, it's your name on the license, and you are ultimately responsible for making sure that all the rules and regulations of the board and the ABCC and the laws of the Commonwealth are adhered to?
I do.
Okay. So I want to get into some of details. As far as the list of employees, we have we have a 24-hour contact, which is Joe Sweeney. So what is his role? Is he a security person?
He's a security person, and along with his number and he's easily reachable, and he's as well been in contact with the various police departments in Boston. He's been supplying and working with them on the surveillance, including our own surveillance. We have been providing footages for not just for the establishment, but for other needs of its cameras on Linden Street and other ones that we requested. And police
Is he an actual employee of your establishment, or is he just a consultant, or what?
he is an
employee?
He is an employee,
How
correct.
long has he worked for you?
Over 10 years.
So he's the one that was responsible for saving video in the past?
Correct.
Okay. So there's two managers, Alexander Shapiro and Abraham Hale, who looks like they've joined us today too. And then you list bartenders, comma, servers, comma, and barbacks. Not really broken down, so I'd like that further broken down. Then you have 4 promoters. So there's no list of doormen or bouncers. So should we assume that you're outsourcing that to your security operations that you consulted with?
Correct.
And they're here today to answer questions about training.
Abraham, the new manager that we've been working on all those policies for the past month, for the reopening plan, he's been intensely involved with the security company that's been with us for the past month and already 6 times on the premises. Abraham, would you like to step in?
Yes, thanks, Alex. Hello, board. Hello, Kathleen. My name is Abraham Hale. Currently, the security company isn't on the phone with us today, but I've had extensive meetings with them. Like Alex and Kurt explained, I've had them come to the venue for over 5 times.
Alex, Abraham, would it be too much trouble for you to put your camera on so we can see you?
Yes, for sure. Yes. How are you today?
So you're an employee here.
Correct.
And you're the liaison or the one that contracted with the security company,
Correct. Yep.
but they're not here today to answer questions about security.
Currently, they are not on the phone.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you the questions about security.
For sure. Yes.
So, so can you explain to me how you vetted and hired the security company?
Yes. So when working with Alex and the Russian Benevolent Society, I assessed a few things. One of the things I assessed was security. My main goal was to find a security company that prioritized de-escalation, prioritize the safety of all the patrons that would be coming into the venue, understanding that creating an environment that is accepting and also not hostile once entering the venue was extremely important. I assessed about 4 different companies. I also assessed the company that we currently had in place. And after doing that, I was able to come to an agreement with AmeriGod and with the understanding that they were the best security company for us to enable to put in a plan that will have de-escalation as a prioritization, and then also to ensure that everybody that works for them, one, is Corey checked, which was very important for us, is to ensure that all of the guards that would be working on premises do have a clean Corey, and also that the head person that runs the company, which his name is Gerald Haggerty, is former police. So his understanding and knowledge of how to work with the police, his understanding that it's very important that anytime police is involved, that his staff is to be very cooperative. These are things that didn't happen before and that we want to ensure does happen going forward when working with whether it be the board or security.
So Abraham, you're the contact for the security. How do you manage and monitor, this contracted company's training of their staff? How do you ensure that they are following the rules and regulations of your company?
Yep. So on the plan I have in place is essentially on a nightly basis. We will be bringing everyone together prior to opening. And when I say everyone, I mean the security staff and also the waitresses, the barbacks, the promoters, and the also the bartenders. Essentially have nightly meetings, constantly letting them know, okay, everybody, we were going to be opening tonight. Here are the things that we always need to look out for. Here are the things that we need to make sure we stress. De-escalation, we need to stress an environment when people come in and it's not hostile. We need to address preventive measures to make sure that anytime anybody comes into this establishment, if you see any conflict, make sure to address the conflict first. Don't allow the conflict to escalate. So we will be having nightly meetings with all staff.
Okay, so that's the problem. One of the problems we run in with places, you contract with a security company and they're not considered employees by you. So I would like to ask you, if you're ever asked for a list of employees, to include the list of your contractors. The definition of employee in our rules and regulations is not clear, but I would like you to understand that it is the board expects you to share their names if you're ever asked for a list of employees.
Got you. So
And
I did.
contractors.
I did list the contractor's name in the plan, so it should be there under the security
But if the
section.
police show up and there
Yep.
is a shooting or there is a stabbing and they ask for a list of employees, it's not okay that you interpreted that as that they're contracted by a security company.
Okay, so Kathleen, is your name Kathleen? I just want to make sure I say that correctly.
Yeah.
So would it be fine that on the night of every night that we have an event, to make sure we have the first and last names of every
And
single one of the
And
security
phone
members?
numbers. And phone
First,
numbers.
last name, and phone number? Okay,
Yes.
we'll ensure to have that.
Yes, that should be crystal clear to whoever is on premise every
Okay.
single night. Now, is Gerald Haggerty going to be on site or is he just the person you worked with at AmeriGuard?
So he's the owner of the company. He's one of the people I spoke to. I also spoke to his main point person. His name is Angel Ortiz. He's been with the company for over 10 years. He will be on site every night as well. And
So that you have a manager, AmeriGuard gives you 7 security every night and a manager.
correct.
And then you are the person from the garage that works with this manager. I'm trying to understand and to help you articulate the relationship between your security staff, who are contractors and not technical definition of an employee, and the employees here. Because ultimately the responsibility is the garage to ensure
Correct.
that your patrons are safe, whether or not you contract out with a security company. It's not
Yes.
okay that you just have a contract with a security company. I
So
would
I can,
actually probably ask to see more information about this contract with the security company and what their training is.
okay. So you want me to explain it better in terms of?
No, that's
I'm the
fine for
point of
now.
contact?
We could follow up with in writing. I want to get to some more questions I have.
Okay.
I don't know if this is for Alex or for Abraham or for you, Attorney Bletzer, but what are the standards for terminating an employee? Can you give me an example of things that you would terminate an employee for?
Yeah, I can make an example. We've already actually terminated one of the employees based off of their communication prior to with the past incident that happened with the police officers. We ended up terminating an employee mainly because she was one of the points of contention with the police, where she wasn't being cooperative. She was exasperating the whole situation where it could have been easily solved. So after discussion with Alex and also with Alexander, who was on premise at that night of the incident, and assessing what happened, we ended up terminating that specific employee because she clearly didn't follow the guidelines that we wanted to work with moving forward. So that's just an example of a termination of employee and what we most likely do going forward as well.
Okay, and I've probably said this to people on this call before in other hearings, but the role of security and bouncers or doormen is not just to look for intoxicated patrons and to ID people. It's to ensure the safety of people as they enter your premise, but also as they exit it. So I would like some more information about what your policy is, or perhaps AmeriGuard's policy is, as far as ejecting someone from your premise. How many people are involved in that sort of situation, staff and security, and how you, as a manager, or Abraham as the contact for AmeriGuard, what you articulate to the security company that then goes to their employees about the behavior that you expect when someone is ejected, whether it's for any reason.
Yeah, so after bringing AmeriGuard to the premise a couple of times, we spoke about how they would be placed in the actual facility, and then also how they're going to communicate with each other while they're in the facility, and how they would operate anytime there is a conflict. So while going in there, there are essentially going to be 6 guards within the actual premise. While being in the premises inside, they all will have walkie-talkies on during the evening. They also all have essentially hand signals anytime they're all going to be in eyesight of each other, so they will all be able to see each other, and anytime there is any type of point of contention, they all have their hand signals to essentially go to where the point of contention is. We have made it clear that they are not to touch anybody unless 2 things happen. One, they are physically touched by a patron. At that point, they would just restrain that patron and then exit them from the property. Or 2, if a patron is trying to, or is in the act of actually physically trying to touch someone. At that point, there would be 2 security guards on each arm, essentially restraining them. There will be security guard behind them as well. And then there would also be myself and another security guard in front of them exiting out of the property. So that's in terms of our ejecting someone, as you call it, from the property. That's what we would be doing. The reason why there would be someone in front and behind is just in case any of the other patrons try to get involved while exiting them, they will be there to essentially prevent them from causing any more escalations. So that's essentially the plan for exiting someone from the actual premises.
Okay. I think I read in the reopening plan that you have a standing order for police detail.
Yeah, so I went down to D14, the Brighton Alston headquarters, essentially. And I introduced myself. I essentially told them that I would be one of the managers at Garage. We are working with the city licensing board to reopen. I essentially explained to them that we are looking to have a police detail every single night that we have an event. They did say that that's probably unrealistic, but I said, regardless if it's realistic or not, I'm going to put in the request. I understand that it's a 4-hour minimum. I think I put 2 hours there, but since doing that, I have gained knowledge that it's a 4-hour minimum to have someone on staff, which we are more than fine with. We are more than happy to pay for it, because our goal and what we understand is, we have a large facility. Even though we have an indoor facility, we also have a walkway, we have an outside facility, and we also have a parking lot. So it's very large, our establishment, and us requesting police detail is something we want to put in place, and we're happy to take the burden of cost, because all we care about is the safety of our patrons. We understand that reopening, safety is a main priority for everybody. And if people aren't safe, they can't come to our facility. We can't operate. So that's why we will be putting in a request for police detail every time we do an event.
Okay, I appreciate that. But I also want to emphasize that the request for police detail is not a guarantee that you'll get a police detail.
Yep.
And that they're there for your assistance, but you probably won't be aware of whether or not that detail has been picked up until the night of.
Correct.
Anyone who is part of the organization that was here before, did you request police details before this?
We have in the past.
And so
Yes.
what is the average that you were able to fill those details?
I don't think a lot. Alex, you can answer that better than I can.
No, unfortunately, we have put in several requests in the past, but I don't think we have ever actually gotten the detail.
Okay, so I want to emphasize that we're aware of that. It's not enough that you requested it. And if should they be filled, it's still not enough to not cooperate as far as security and operations. The police are stretched very thin. So that's why places that actually take up a lot of police resources and responses to things, can sometimes be seen as a burden in the neighborhood. But to put that into perspective, we don't want you to not call the police if there's an issue. Your first line of defense before the board is that a staff member called the police for any sort of altercation. So it's not a defense that we tried to get a police detail and they didn't show up. You should have enough security internally to be able to cover your issues as a licensed premise. So speaking of security and cameras, there's been testimony in the past that some of your security cuts out or, is perhaps not a complete clip of the video. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yes.
So who on this call today can talk to me about what their practices were before and how you're going to improve them now? Because that can go a long way to helping a licensed premise should they be written up for a violation. And it is not going to be sufficient that the video footage has not been saved, that the video footage is not complete, or that the video footage, for whatever reason, skips out on the very important part that perhaps the police and licensing board is looking into. So who on this call can speak to your current practices, your past practices, and how you plan on improving them as far as retaining video footage?
I can speak before you, Alex, before you do, I can, because I spent a lot of time with Joe. I spent a lot of time with him on several occasions with different events and different issues. I know exactly what we're talking in terms of the last issue. We have an extensive system around the whole building that Joe has built and rebuilt, and he's rebuilt it again. We had no answer for why it skipped out the last time. It happened to skip out, obviously, at the most opportune time, but Joe's the only person that touches that video. Joe's the only person that has access to that video. Nobody else has access to the video with the ability to do anything other than let it run as it runs. It's locked upstairs up in the office buildings. That it's not something that the staff uses, not even something that any of the management uses, because it's beyond their capacity to deal with it. But Joe has looked at that, has tried to figure out what happened. I believe we've already gotten we gave our entire system to the BPD. We actually took the whole, whatever you want to call it, the recorder itself out for them to analyze it. I'm not sure whatever came up of that, but we were able to, I think we got it back already, Alex, correct? And Joe has rebuilt, and I know he's got everything back up and moving right now. We'll have everything running
I will have
properly.
to confirm that.
How come
Go ahead,
Joe
Alex.
was able to join us today? Was he
Pardon me?
unavailable? Joe, who is the 24-hour contact and the security person, he's not able to join us today?
It was not an intention-
Is he around, Alex?
it was not an intention for him to join, but if we're gonna spend more time, right now I can get him on the Zoom right now if we want.
I don't know if the other commissioners will have questions about security, but I know it's been a constant problem here. So it might be in everyone's best interest to have Joe joining us to answer the questions about his job.
Yeah, but to add to what has Kurt Blatzer said, we have added cameras over the years, and unfortunately, when incidents do happen, we constantly run into the blind spots, or even situation like this where we think it's just a DVR that has a sequence of recording, and I'm not well versed into this, but Joe is, and again, it's an improvement, and it's an improvement process. We're constantly trying to eliminate those problems, blind spots, and at this point, we already have close to 15 cameras on the premises, trying to literally catch every single spot. And again,
And how long do you retain the video for?
30 days.
30 days, okay.
Kathleen, this is Abraham. I did want to say that I spoke to Joe and I did put this in the report that it's going to be imperative that we check the operations of the security cameras on a weekly basis to ensure that prior to opening on that weekend, that the security system is up and running and there are no glitches and there are no issues. I'm not sure if that was done in the past, but I know going forward that will be mandatory to ensure that Joe makes sure that the security system is working.
Okay. And I know.
Commissioner Joyce, I'm going to get, sorry, I'm going to have Joe come in right now. He'll be right in.
Okay.
Okay?
In the meantime, and in the interest of time, while we wait for Joe to connect, I'm going to defer, reserve my right to ask more questions, but defer to Commissioner Curran or Commissioner Saxon to begin their questions.
Sure. So is there a plan for coring the bartenders? You said that that was the last like group of people who did not get a background check. Is there a plan to do that?
Correct. But everybody prior to the opening, everybody will be going through the car. By the way, Joe, I see Joe has joined us. If we do have any questions for him. To answer your question,
just to as far as the preservation of the video, as the chair stated, it's not in the security plan. So even if you have the video is set up to be retained for 30 days, if there is any incident, it should be just simply retained for as long as it is useful.
Yes,
And
any
that should
issue
be
that we have, we will retain it because we turn that over to the police. Joe's on right now. Joe, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I was having a little difficulty connecting, but I'm in now.
Okay.
Hi, Joe. I'm Kathleen Joyce. I'm chair of the board. How long have you worked at the garage?
Well, I don't work at the garage, but I installed this security system and the surveillance system over the years for about 15 years for these tenants, for these customers. And for this specific instance for Garage Lounge, we installed that probably 5-6 years ago, maybe. So it has been there quite some time.
How would you describe some of the glitches we've heard about in past hearings with video
Yeah, so
being
yep,
missing and stuff skipped?
So first and foremost, I do want to say that I understand your concern with any kind of glitches. I was actually one of the only installers for the Boston Police Department for their interrogation software, and I understand how important it is to have every single detail of video. So I discussed this with the detectives that came over, and this is a fairly old unit. I did call tech support, and they're no longer supporting the Wirepath DVR recorders. So what we found was the video was recording, and it would go along, and then it would skip. Now, initially, this skipped for close to 3 minutes. And then, initially we thought maybe somebody had caused a problem with the cameras. So the detectives and I kind of looked, and we found other instances before that, like the day before that, at all random times. And we did see that it was glitching and jumping sporadically.
Oh, Joe, I think you're glitching. I can't hear
We
you.
miss you, Joe.
Okay, sorry. So we've actually turned this recorder over to the police department and have since installed cloud-based cameras. So what these do now is they have a local recorder in the building, and then that building also records to the cloud. So that's kind of the way the new technology is going anyway. The old standalone recorders with physical hard drives in them are starting to become obsolete.
Okay, so explain to me, this place has the old ones that are becoming obsolete, or you've put new ones in?
No, we've actually took that recorder out, and the police department had that recorder. We haven't even received that one back. We installed a new system. So this new system has a local recorder there and then records to the cloud.
Okay, and so you're listed as the garage's 24-hour contact, but you don't
Yes.
work with them. So I'm just.
Well, I do
confused
the
whether you're the right
facility.
person.
Got it. So I don't work directly for Garage Lounge. I work for the property management and the technology end of the property management. So
Okay, so for the 24-hour contact, we need somebody who is responsible for the liquor license that can be called at any time, who can then call Joe and say,
Yes.
Joe, we have an incident, and that incident, we are requiring you to hold on to security. I'm not calling the property manager.
That's Alex
To a
Matoff.
discussion with a property manager. Okay, so it should be someone who's going to take full responsibility for anything that happens inside.
Understood. That would be myself.
Okay, previously, I think it was your accountant, so we want to make sure it's the right person. I don't think it's Joe, but I think it's someone whose name is on the license. And we need a phone number where we can reach you at all times.
Understood.
And you should be able to get into touch with Joe, who we're told works for property management, and tell him to preserve any video at any time.
Kevin, might be asking, do you have my contact information? Or do we need to?
We'll redo it and send it back in. We'll redo and answer the other questions,
Yeah.
and provide the other information also that you've asked for.
So I need to make it crystal clear. It's not about, deflecting the responsibility. I don't think the property manager is ultimately responsible for what happens inside a licensed premise. You are, Alex. Your name is on the license. We need to be able to get in touch with you at all times. It has been our experience that we have to go through your attorney to then get in touch with you because we had your bookkeeper or your accountant's phone number. So I want to make it very clear, you are responsible for that, and we need to be able to get in touch with you at all times. If you are leaving the country, which happens at other licensed premises, we need to know who we can get in touch with. It is definitely not the landlord. It is definitely not the property manager.
Understood.
Okay. At all times, we should be able to get the video footage of something that happened that night and in touch with someone who can answer questions for us and for Boston Police.
Understood.
Okay. Commissioner Curran, do you have any questions?
A couple. Some of it's just to kind of jump on what the chair has already said, but this question of the independence of any contractor, I think you guys need to do a better job of locking down that you ultimately, when they're working for you, they're under your management. You have to have full management control of anybody that might be alleged to be an independent contractor, because really you can't have independent contractors. You can have contractors who, when they come in, are under your full control. Are we in agreement?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
That was one of the main reasons we took AmeriGuard, because we obviously know the issues that we had last time, and they understand, and we'll go through and we'll get the information on a nightly basis as to who's there. But the answer is yes, they listen to what we say. They work for us. They're under our umbrella when they come to work on our property. We know we're responsible for them, for their actions when we hire them, and they understand. That was one of the things we made perfectly clear to them, that Abraham did, is that they cooperate with us. They do what we tell them when the police come, when there's any issues on the property. They don't duck and hide. They don't, do their own thing and say, we don't work for you. So that they understand that we've been through that at length.
Have you had any discussions with them about like how they're going to staff your place? Are they going to make attempts to staff your place with consistent crew of people, or are you going to get people night after night, week after week? It seems like it would be quite chaotic to be staffed with many different people over time versus maybe they had people set to be assigned to your place.
Yeah,
Would you like to step
Go ahead,
in?
Abraham, you can answer that.
yes. So I've actually had conversations with them about that because it is important to me to have a consistent security personnel and not to have constantly overlapping people. So he ensured that the people that will be working on premise are the people who are assigned to Garage or Crystal City with Garage Room. The main point of contact that I currently have, Angel Ortiz, will be there on a nightly basis. That's where he will be. So he did make it clear to me that, there are going to be times where new people will have to be coming on board because of everything that we're working with through COVID and things of that nature. But he said since that's died down completely, that he hasn't had call outs, These people are ready to go. They're ready to work. And I told them one of the most important things is to have consistent people coming, because I don't want to see a bunch of new faces.
Aside from that, it's also this stretch of the entire premise, meaning the parking lot, the numbers of the people that are going to be covered, that, and so forth.
All right. Another question. In your security protocol, it says in case of emergency, security will inform the staff to immediately contact authorities. That looks very messy to me. One, what even constitutes an emergency? I think we need specifics on that. We want to lock it in. What's the, what is the potential line of when the police need to be called and when they don't? And then security will inform the staff. Security is the staff. I mean, if any individual who's the first person, the direct person dealing with the issue, if they're able to, they should be the one calling the police if they've determined it's time to call the police. This, like kind of running up any kind of chains, I think is a recipe for, miscommunication.
Yep. So essentially what I put in there was, I didn't want my bottle girls or any of the waitresses or bartenders to be the one handling any of issue if there is an issue with the patron. I want that to be management and security, because we are more inclined to deal with any type of, whether it be a physical altercation, whether it be a confrontation between people yelling. I want them to notify security and management immediately so we can go and try to de-escalate that. If it becomes a situation where we can't de-escalate, I want the management, so myself or any other management that I have on board, to be one to instantly call the police, because I want security to continue to pay attention to what's going on with the actual altercation, and it'd be my job to call the police right away.
Yeah, I think you might want to consider the flip side of that, is that there's only so many eyes. You're talking about 7 security guards for a pretty big place there. My thought process for a long time has been that I'd rather see more employees feel empowered to call attention to issues that they see and deal with them quickly. Certainly not every bottle, not every server, not every bartender is frontline security, but they should have a sense that it's within their power, if they see something that's emergent, to act on it quickly, and that that there won't be negative repercussions of that.
Gotcha. Yeah, completely understood.
I think you need to empower as many eyes in your place as possible. Maybe they're not fully responsible for it, but if something's happening and it's not in view of one of the 7 security people, that person running off trying to find security and they're not on the radios and all that kind of stuff, that's wasted time. So
Understood.
And with contacting the authorities, I think it needs to be a message from the board through you to your employees that calling the police is the preferred option. They can, when you call 911, we've been told before by Boston Police that dispatch is going to triage that problem. Whatever you call up and describe to them, they'll triage that problem. If something looks like it's boiling up and then it cools down, we can always call the police off. So calling the police is in your interest. It sets that moment where you saw that problem, and you can say, we call the police, even though nothing ever happened of it. Or, on the flip side, we called the police early, and even though something happened later, we were trying to address it. We were making attempts, we want to see that effort. No fear of calling the police. And it has to be expressed to your staff as being something in your best interest.
Understood.
I do have one more thing that I thought of. I don't know, you guys have been closed for a little while, and I didn't really see it here, and it kind of relates to ejecting patrons that are problematic or they seem intoxicated. But we've had a recent incidences of suspected drink spiking. So, we want to see I would like to see some language and procedures about not just kicking people out who are intoxicated, who seem like they've been overserved or something like that, but procedures for checking in on these people and making sure they're okay. You know, not just booting them to the curb and see you later because they're, you know, you're no longer gonna serve them, but you know, some sort of procedure for checking in on people that are intoxicated, how they got that way, how they getting home, who are they with, you know, do they have their belongings and stuff like that. So, you know, not just a punitive situation where someone's intoxicated, they need to go, but, you know, more in the way of like caring for your patrons when there might be a problem. So I'd like to see some procedure, some language with regard to that.
Just a
All I have at the moment.
Thank you, Commissioner Curran. I know we are also joined by some representatives from the Boston Police Department, including, I believe, from D14. I would like to give the opportunity to ask any questions about the security and reopening plan as submitted.
Good morning, Sergeant
Yeah.
Detective Salucci.
Detective Sean McCarthy.
Hold on, Sean, 1 second. Sergeant Detective Salucci here. Captain just had to step out to go to a Boston calling meeting, so he'd like to apologize for that. He wants to know about the security company. He just tried to Google them and he couldn't find them on Google, but he's wondering what they're gonna wear for uniforms, whether they're gonna be armed, and his concern is the parking lot after these events end, because that's where most of the problems happen. Can Abraham answer that?
Yes, I can. Hello, officer. So security, in terms of what are they going to be wearing? So all security members will be wearing all black. They'll have security on the back of their attire. So whether that be a t-shirt or if they're wearing a jacket, it's going to say in big letter security, and it's also going to be saying in big letter security in the front as well. They will not be armed on the premises. We don't believe that that's the best way to go about it. If the city or D14 feels as if we should have armed security guards, the company does have armed security guards on staff, so that's something that we can implement, but we didn't feel like that was necessary. If that's something that you all or the licensing board does feel like it's necessary, we can have that implemented.
Okay, another question is, the promoters last time brought in their own security, and that was a problem because they were in a different, you pointed them out as being in different shirts and different uniforms than your security is. Are the promoters gonna be allowed to bring in their security, and we gonna, so
No.
going forward, the promoters will not be allowed to bring in security?
100% no. It would only be our security staff that will be on premises. Promoters aren't security. They can't bring in their own security. That will not be allowed.
Okay, and is there a house phone there? When you call 911, do the bartenders and servers have access to a phone for an incident? Like, do you have a hotline there, or is everybody calling, when they call 911 there, do they call from their cell phones, or is there a
With the
hotline there?
It's Alexander or Alex?
Yes, those are the most accessible. And everybody has them in the pocket, and we feel that this is the best way to go. We can tie it up to a hard line, but again, it's something that they're gonna have to walk to in order for them to make a call.
Yeah, but those lines are connected right to our computer-aided dispatchers, and if someone doesn't speak on the phone, we can still dispatch a car if you have a hotline there, you know, but
Okay,
the cell
it your
phone works
suggestion?
too, but it's just preferred for our dispatchers that we know where to go if there's a problem, you know? If
yes,
someone can't talk on the phone or something.
Detective, that's an issue of like routing and tracing, correct?
Correct.
And is that the same for VoIP lines, or does it have to be a
I know
hard?
the cell phones have improved but it's still, that's a tough area where they are, where the location is, that's from where the call comes in, because the business is kind of hidden off the street in the back in an alleyway. So it's a difficult place to find unless you've been there before.
So just detective, if they have a hard line like through Verizon, like the telephone company, that
Yeah,
help in getting that it's coming from that place.
yes, definitely.
So maybe that's something you can implement in addition to having everyone be able to call from a cell phone, like,
And then they can prove that they called if they called 911, which they didn't do last time, then we'll know they called, you know?
In all respect, we did call last time and we provided the call log for it.
That's not the issue today.
To pick up on the detective's comment about the location, how it's real, a lot of the issues are outside. I'd like to request Attorney Blitzer to submit a dispersal plan. I don't believe we have one on record, just to talk about when closing hour comes, how security disperses people, because that is a long driveway parking lot. And
Yes,
I think
agreed.
it's probably could lead to issues if you don't have a proper plan in place that we'd like to see.
Okay, we can do that.
Will do.
Is there a way we can get a list of the promoters that are coming in and what kind of events they're gonna have too? Could they provide the police department with that before these events happen? That way we can monitor social media to find out who's gonna be there and what type of crowds they're gonna have.
Sure.
Yes.
Go ahead, Amber.
Yep. So, officer, what we can do is, we've already provided some of the promoters to, the promoters that are currently going to be working with Garage, we anticipate, on the reopening plan. What we can also do is, we can, for the safety of time and organization, we can direct you to the Garage Instagram page, which I will be managing, to where anytime there's ever an event at Garage, that will be listed on the actual page. You can let me know if that's sufficient enough, but that will let you know exactly what we are doing on that night. So you all will be aware if we'll be open and what type of a night it will be.
When you
I'd like to
request,
take- yeah.
when you request a detail, you can give the office the name of the promoter and they can put it right in the detail. So if an officer takes it, he knows who the promoter is and he can look himself
Perfect.
if we don't get around to it, but. that'd
And
be
I,
good.
and I think that communication is important for the police when they're looking at the request for police details. If they see something or a promoter that, you know, they might be familiar with, it may be more likely that they'll pick up that detail. We often require entertainment licensees to notify us, you know, by Wednesday who is performing that weekend. And when we have that information, we try to share it with interested parties. It might be something that this board can think about. It would be on the entertainment side, but I think the more communication you have with the board and Boston Police, the better it is for you as a licensee.
Sounds
So I
good.
know, I don't think we should put the burden on Boston Police to go to your Instagram page. If you could shoot us an email. And when you put those requests into the police details, include that information, it will only help you.
Okay, we'll definitely do that. Just like the officer suggested, we can put the promoter's name right on the detail request anytime we do it. In terms of any performance or anybody that we'll be having coming, we plan on having come in, like you requested, by Wednesday, we can send an email to the licensing board, essentially letting you know, okay, this is a performer or this is a guest host that we have coming in. We just want to make you guys aware of it. If there's
Sure.
any new promoters as well, we will make you guys aware of it. Am I understanding that you want us to send you an email every Wednesday of our weekly, like our plan
Yes.
for the weekend?
Yes.
Okay.
And sometimes I know you have theme nights like Asian night or whatever, like even that information is helpful in case the police are looking for certain, you know, performers and that they may not just know their name based off your list.
Okay, so every Wednesday you would like us to send you an email just basically of our weekend plan. Is that what I'm hearing?
As soon as you know it, that would be great. I'm randomly picking Wednesday. I'll talk to my staff to see if that's helpful. But again, we're trying to help you and Boston Police work together and to
Mhm.
operate safely. So if you have this information on Monday, please submit it to us so that Boston Police can plan.
And is sending it to the licensing board sufficient, or is there also an email that I should also send it to for D14 as well?
I think the detective probably would appreciate an email right to D14. But if you would like to submit the appropriate email for the district, that's fine. If not, we will make sure that they get it and we'll give it to our licensed premise unit as well.
And that would be
We can move-
licensing board at boston.gov.
Yeah, at the bare minimum, send it to the board. I think it's in your best interest to send it to D14.
Is,
Make sure that-
I think Attorney Blitzer has our emails if you need them.
Okay, sounds good. I will do that.
Just following up on what the detective said about, or the comment about the company, if the security company is legitimate, if there should be some paperwork, there should be some, filing with the corporations division or something. So Attorney Blitzer, can you just follow up and just make sure that the company is filed properly and they're a legitimate company that can be independent contractors with this?
I will do that.
For evictions, is there, sorry about that. For evictions, is there a process? I heard that when they're exiting the establishment, you're surrounding them. But once they're outside, the plan should include that the parties, if they've gotten into some sort of altercation, that they're separated, and and that you ensure that the parties don't have a chance to get back together on the outside.
Yeah, so the plan in terms of not just removing someone specifically from the venue, but also just clearing the venue completely. Essentially, when the night is ending, there will be the 3 guards inside, essentially ushering people out, asking them if they can, leave the premises, thank them for coming, doing everything pleasant and not being hostile. But there are also going to be the 4 other security guards who are going to be outside and ushering them through the walkway. And then once everybody has left the venue, the actual inside venue, they'll also walk them all the way through to the parking lot, monitoring the parking lot. And no security guard will be leaving the premises until all patrons and staff has left. So essentially all patrons will leave, and then the staff will be leaving too. And then that's when the last security guard will leave to ensure that everybody is safe throughout the night.
Thank you. Were there any further questions from the Boston Police Department, who is present with us this morning?
Detective Gallagher had one. If there's an incident that night, is there anyone able to access the cameras that night? It sounds like they're going to be in a secure room that the employees can't touch. If the detectives arrive on scene, there was an incident, is there anyone that's going to have the ability to review cameras that night so we can get a witness description out?
Yeah, we can set that up, Sergeant Detective, with Joe and the management, so they have the ability to do that immediately. We can do that. He just has to train them with the new system, which he will do.
That'd be very helpful, because time would be the essence in a lot of these cases. And if you can get an accurate description out, it might be able to apprehend a suspect. Also, they were talking about checking these cameras once a week. I know with once a week, that turns into once a month, maybe every night that they're open, that they can make sure that the cameras are up and running, so there aren't any problems as well.
Yep. No problem. We can handle that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Detective. Are there any further questions from either the police or the commissioners who are present with us this morning?
Again, I just want to emphasize these additional requirements we're asking of you are there to protect you as business owners and as a licensed premise. Anything we're asking in the end, we're putting you on notice that these are our expectations of you, and I think can help you operate a safe premise, licensed premise. I have no other questions at this time. I will look forward to a dispersal plan and an updated security plan with the information that we outlined for you today. But I'll ask the commissioners and Boston Police if they have any other comments or questions.
Detective Sean McCarthy, I just have one recommendation. As far as a re-entry policy, I think it might be a good idea to put patrons in wristbands, and once they leave the venue, they can no longer come back, and that begins at the walkway leading down to the garage, where most of the problems seem to happen. So once they're gone for the night. They don't have a chance to come back and retaliate against anyone they may have had a disagreement with in there. And also with the ID scanners, will there be an ID scanner present there?
We're working on that one right now. We're trying to get the new CF 5400.
Okay, will that record the identification information?
Yes, it will.
Yeah, that one does.
All right, can everybody entering the venue that night, from the promoters to the employees, would it be possible for them to scan their IDs as well?
Yes, for sure.
Thank you. It looks like there are no further questions. Let me just hold to make sure that's true.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that these suggestions that've been agreed to are put into the security, plan, the next one we get. So every, go through the whole list that we've gone through. And
We'll do that today.
integrate all them all into writing. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you, Attorney Bletzer, or anyone from the licensed premise. Is there anything you would like to add before we conclude for the morning?
No, we'll update the security plan and get that back into you right away. So you can have that.
Thank you. The board will be on the lookout for an updated reopening security plan and a dispersal plan as requested. Please feel free to follow up with us with any of the details requested today. This will also be posted onto the city's website for review in case you need that as well. That is the only item before the board this morning. The board will take this and the submission to come under advisement. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.